चलो बच्चों, लेट्स गो थ्रू द टॉपिक ऑफ काइनेमैटिक्स। बहुत आसान सा टॉपिक है, बहुत वेरी इजी टॉपिक। कुछ बेसिक वेरी फ्यू ग्राफिकल कॉन्सेप्ट्स टू बी कवर्ड हियर, और बाकी के रिलेटिवली आसान टॉपिक है। सबसे पहले द फर्स्ट थिंग दैट वी विल डू इन काइनेमैटिक्स, जो बहुत फ्रीक्वेंटली हम करते भी हैं, विच इज स्पीड। व्हाट इज स्पीड? इक्वल्स टू डिस्टेंस अपॉन टाइम। बट दीज फॉर्मूले कैन ओनली बी यूज्ड, जिसको आप जिस भी तरह बना लें। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर मैं टाइम का बनाऊं तो टाइम क्या हो जाएगा? Distance upon speed. And what about distance? Speed into time. So all these formulae can only be used once you have everything in constant values. If there is a variation, so you cannot use these formulae. What do we do when we have variations? We make graphs. What do? We make graphs. Now there are two graphs that we will be majorly concerned with. The first is the distance time graph. पहले तो एक बात याद रखो, whenever you are given such a word, distance time graph. So the first word is on the y-axis and the second is on the x-axis. So distance time graph is plotted distance on the y and time on the x-axis. Is that right? Okay. Generally, what does it show you? It shows you how the distance varies with time. When do you need this graph? And you need to show how the distance varies with time. How do you find the gradient of any graph? y2 minus y1, which I can say change in y divided by change in. What about this particular graph? What is the quantity on the y-axis? What is the quantity on the y-axis? Distance hai. So what is change in distance upon change in time? Speed. Clear hai nahi hai? So what does this show us? This shows us that the gradient of a distance time graph is basically speed. This is about the basic distance time graph. First, it tells you how the distance varies with time, and then the gradient can also tell you the speed. दूसरा जो graph हम देखेंगे, that is speed time graph. उसका gradient हमें क्या बताता है? For commerce students specifically, gradient of a speed time graph, it shows you the acceleration. Negative acceleration is also called deceleration or retardation. Negative acceleration को what do we call? We call it deceleration और retardation. जैसे loss होता है, negative profit is loss, इसी तरह से negative acceleration को you can call it deceleration or retardation. Another thing that we need to see is that the distance, or I can say that the area under a speed time graph shows you the distance power. You cannot simply use the formula. Why? Because the distance is changing or the speed is varying. When there is variation, हम simply ये सारे formulae use नहीं कर सकते. These formulae can only be used if there is constant speed. If the speed is changing, these formulae will never be used. We'll understand it through the graphs instead. ये बात clear है या नहीं है? समझ आ गई बात? The diagram is the speed time graph for part of a car's journey. The retardation of the car between T8 and T12 is 4 meter per second square. So retardation का मतलब है यहाँ की बात हो रही है. If retardation is 4, can you tell me the acceleration? If retardation is 4, what will be the acceleration? -4. Negative acceleration को ही retardation बोलते हैं. एग्जाम्पल दे रहा हूं मैं, कॉमर्स की एग्जाम्पल लेता हूं. If I have a profit of -100, then the loss is, if I tell you loss है 100, so what is the profit? -100. सही है ना? Same example here, acceleration जब negative होती है, that is when you call it retardation or deceleration. So if it is telling you कि retardation ही 4 है, so what do you know about acceleration कितनी है? -4 है. That means the gradient of this particular line is -4. Is that right? So if I were to find the gradient, I know that the gradient is -4. How do I find the gradient? Which is the acceleration? What are the 2 points that I can take? 8, V, and the second point is 12, 0. If I were to find the gradient on my own, y2 minus y1, so V लिखता हूँ V minus 0 upon 8 minus 12. Is that right? I already know the acceleration is -4. So what is the value of V? कैसे -16? No, wrong. Please be very careful with this. It is +16. Clear every day? The next part wants us to find the total distance traveled by the car in 12 seconds. How do we do that? We'll find the area under the graph. And how do we find the area under the graph? What shape is this? Trapezium. What is the height of this trapezium? This is the height of the trapezium. Can we agree on this? This is what you need to understand. Is this the height of the trapezium? And what is this height? This height is V, it is not 8. So the height of the trapezium is V. What about the parallel sides? एक parallel side और दूसरी parallel side. कितनी है parallel sides? This is one parallel side. Is that right? And this is the other parallel side. So this one parallel side is 12 and the other parallel side is 8. How do we find the area of a trapezium? Half into height into sum of parallel sides. So my height in this case is V, which is 16. One parallel side is 8, the other is 12. Half and 16 cancelled out, 8 times 20. So the distance traveled is 160 meters. Is this clear? Let's have a look at another question. Read the question carefully first. The speed when t is 8. Now, there is no grand concept of kinematics involved in this one. Some basic, very basic concept of gradient. I need to find the speed when the time is 8. Is that right? This is what I'm searching for. Right? सबसे पहले, if I take any 2 points on this line, will my gradient be the same or different? Same, no matter what 2 points I take, my gradient will be same. Okay, let's see how many points can I take. पहले तो मैं देखता हूँ, मैं ले सकता हूँ. What do I know? 0, 4. This is one point that I clearly know on the line. 10, 12, another point that I clearly know on the line. And the third is 8, let's call it V, speed ko Vs कह लेते. Now, no matter what pair of points I choose, the gradient must be, okay, let's take the first 2 points first. 12 minus 4 upon 10 minus 0 should be equal to, let's take the first and the last one, ज़्यादा आसान है, V minus 4 upon 8 minus 0. Is that right? So इसमें कोई grand concept of kinematics was not involved. Some basic concept of gradient और same coordinate है, दूसरा निकालना है. और what we could have done is पहले gradient आराम से निकाल लेते, फिर दोबारा we could have taken 2 points और फिर unknown करते, but this is an easier one. सही है? Can you tell me the value of V? 12 minus 4 is 8 upon 10 times 8 is V minus 4. So what do I get? 10 से divide ऐसे कर लिया करो, 66.4 V minus 4. So the value of V is 10.4 meters per second. If you're getting otherwise, if you're getting a different value, please let me know. Or if you're unable to understand it, then please let me know. Is this clear? The distance traveled by the car from 0 to 10. 0 to 10 की बात कर रहा है. So, how will I find the distance from this one? Area under the graph. What shape is this? Trapezium. What are the two parallel sides? गौर से देख कर आराम सुकून से. Very good. The vertical lines are the parallel side. What is the length? ये एक parallel side है. 4. And what about the other parallel side? 12. And what about the height? Height is the perpendicular distance between the parallel sides. This is my height. So the height is 10. Is this clear? So how do I find the distance traveled? Area under the graph. So the distance traveled, half into height is 10 into sum of parallel sides. So 5 into 4 plus, इसको 10 ही रहने देते हैं. Yeah, 5 into 16 is 80 meters is the distance traveled. Is this clear? Clear? I want you to sketch this as well. Now the question wants us to, for the same graph, it wants us to sketch the distance time graph from 0 to 15. Okay, सबसे पहले distance time graph का gradient, what will it show us? Speed, right? पहले तो मैं दो lines बनाता हूँ, दो curves बनाता हूँ, and you tell me okay, I'll make two curves right now. मुझे बताना कौन सा वाला. One is this. And the other is this. Which one has an increasing gradient and which one has a decreasing gradient? Obviously, हम left से right जाते हुए देखते हैं. The black one has a slope which is increasing. नीचे slope बहुत कम है, and as I go to the right, the slope increases. And the red one has a slope or a gradient which is decreasing. ये दो curves के बारे में basic concept clear है? Okay. Now let's come to this 5. 0 से लेके 10 तक. Yes, the distance has increased. 10 पे मुझे पता है distance कितना हो गया है? 80 meters. Is that right? Okay, what about the next 5 seconds? उसमें distance कितना है? जरा निकाल लो आराम से. Next 5 seconds में can you find the distance? The area of this rectangle simply 60. So total distance traveled is 140. So first I know that कुछ points plot करते हैं इस पे. After 10 seconds, the distance is 80. Is that right? And after 15 seconds, the distance is 140. Is that right? And 0 per distance is 0, obviously. So first, let's see what हम सोचेंगे again. What should we do? If I start from this and I join this line, पहले तो इस बारे में बात करते हैं. What does it show us? The distance is increasing. But what about the slope of this line? Is the slope constant, increasing or decreasing? Remember, I'm asking about the slope of this line. It's increasing. यहाँ पे slope अलग है और यहाँ पे slope अलग है. Constant. Slope is the same. And what does the slope of this graph tell you? Speed. क्या 0 से 10 तक speed constant थी? नहीं, the speed is increasing. Speed started from 4 and it went to 12. That means that the slope of this graph must be increasing. Curve होना चाहिए. It must not be a straight line. Is that right? अब किस तरह का कर्व होना है? Let's see. If I draw a curve like this, does this make sense? Increasing gradient, right? और उसके बाद what about the speed from 10 to 15? Constant है speed, speed does not change. And how do I show that in the graph? Straight line से बना देंगे, which shows the speed. ये थोड़ा बेहतर बनाओ कि continuity में नजर आए कर्व. Is this clear, bete? So you need to think about the slope as well. Let's have a look at another question. Okay, what about this one? Retardation का क्या मतलब है? 20 is 10. What is the question asking? Retardation? At this point, somewhere. What is it asking? Speed पूछ रहा है, distance पूछ रहा है, slope पूछ रहा है. So slope of this line, I can find the slope from any 2 points. The slope does not change anywhere in between these 2 points. Is that right? कोई भी 2 पॉइंट से स्लोप निकाल लूं. 10 वाले पे तो मुझे स्लोप पता ही, मतलब I do not know any other coordinate on 10. सिर्फ x पता है. उसके लिए और लंबा करना पड़ेगा. So isn't it better कि I take 2 known points and find the gradient? What 2 points should I take? 0, 30 and 20, 12. 0, 30. This is just to help you understand, and 20, 12. This will give me acceleration. Be clear about it. 30 minus 12 upon 0 minus 20. So what is the acceleration then? 18 upon minus 18 upon 20 minus 0.9. This is the acceleration. But what about retardation? 0.9 meter per second square. Is that right? It is just negative acceleration and nothing else. Next part, the question is asking the distance traveled by the car between t0 and 20. How do I find the distance? Area under the graph. What shape is this from 0 to 20? Trapezium hai. What are the 2 parallel sides? Vertical wali, one is 30 and the other is 12. And what is the height? 20 is the height of the trapezium. Or you can take triangle and rectangle and add them. You put triangle or rectangle bhi le sakte ho, but use trapezium. Be smart about it, because eventually we have to use the areas of trapezium, right? So distance kitna aa raha hai bete? Half into height is 20. Sum of parallel sides is 30 plus 12. So 10 into 42. Distance is 420 meters. Make sense? Okay, the distance traveled by the car between T20 and TK is 60 meters, right? Find the value of K. मतलब 20 से लेके ये वाला जो distance है, this is 60. That means this complete area is 60. And I need to find the value of K. How do I find the area of this one? Length into width. Length कितनी है इसकी? 12. And what about this width? K minus 20. For example, if I asked you ये वाली length अगर मैं आपसे पूछूं, we have studied all this in coordinate units. इसलिए मैं कहता हूँ horizontal vertical length सीखो. If I ask you this length, what is this length? 30 minus 12. What about this one? K minus 20. ठीक है? So if I were to find the distance, how will I find it? I'll say the total distance is 60 is 12 into K minus 20. 12 उधर आके divide हुआ. So the value of K is 5. Is this clear? एक और everyday graphs से related question देखते हैं. This is a distance time graph. Read the question first. The diagram is the distance time graph of Safira's journey from home to a shop and back again. She leaves home at 8:15 and returns at 8:50. How many minutes does she stay in the shop? You need to logically think about it. She left her home, traveled a certain distance, stayed there for a certain distance, even though the time was passing. And then she reduced that distance back to 0. So for how long did she stay at the shop? For how many minutes did she stay at the shop? From 8:30 to 8:35. So how many minutes did she stay at the shop? 5 minutes. At 8:30, her brother leaves home and goes to he walks at the same speed as Safira. On the grid, draw the graph of his journey to the shop. Same speed का क्या मतलब है? Very good. Slope same. How can we see the slope? For every one box in X, there is one box in Y. That is another way of understanding slope. At what time does he leave? वो leave कितने बजे करता है? 8:30 पे, right? So we'll say कि he leaves at 8:30, and then for one block, और उसी को हम extend कर देंगे. So that is how he goes to the shop bus. Is this clear? Makes sense. Same speed पे तो same slope है. How far is he from the shop when he meets Safira? When does he meet Safira? पहले तो ये बात बताओ. What about 8:40? 8:40 पे his distance from his home was equal to Safira's distance from the home. But Safira was on her way back and the brother was going to the shop. So that means they met at this point. They have met at this point, but the question is asking us how far they are from the shop. Be very careful about it. Okay, how far they are from the home, ये बताओ मुझे. When they meet, how far? पाकिस्तानी कौम हम far समझते हैं 20 मिनट दूर है. Technically far is always for distance, बेटे सही है ना. Logically कितनी दूर है? Is distance 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers, ठीक है. So how far they are from the home? If I ask you how far they are from the home, 800 meters. How far they are from the shop? 400 meters. Shop का distance तो यहाँ से देखेंगे ना. यहाँ पे shop कितना 1200 meters. So they are 400 meters from the shop. Kindly read the question carefully. So they are distance from the shop is 400 meters. Okay. Next, it's asking you calculate the speed Safira walks to the shop in kilometers per hour. So to the shop, speed हम ले लेते हैं. Speed is distance upon time, a gradient of the graph basically when we are looking at the graph. How much distance did she travel? But we need the speed in kilometers per hour. So what's the smart thing to do? We should take distance in kilometers and time in hours. So what is the distance that she has traveled? 1200 meters को kilometers में कर लो. 1.2. So the distance is 1200 meters. You can convert it into 1.2 kilometers. And time is 30 minutes लग रहा था. No, sorry, not 30 minutes. She left at 8:15 and she reached there at, तो मैं अगर ये change in x निकालना चाह रहा हूँ तो कितना आएगा ये? 15 minutes. If I were to find it in hours, 15 upon 60. Keep it in fractions. This is paper 1. 1/4 हो गया. And how do I find speed? Gradient ही लेंगे हम. Change in y हमें पता है 1.2 divided by change in x. Is that right? So 1.2 times 4. And her speed was constant. तो हम distance upon time directly ले सकते हैं. 4.8 kilometers per hour. Is this clear?